Morning, Jess. Thanks for meeting with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So I have it down that I'm going to come into your classroom on Wednesday, second period, to observe this lesson that you sent me. All right, awesome. Okay, so on Wednesday, what do you hope the students will learn in this lesson?
So they're going to be introduced to volume. So I hope they get more comfortable with it, calculating volume, before they actually get to practice measuring volume of different objects. So that's the goal. Comfortable with calculating volume.
Great. And for this lesson, which standards is this aligned to?
So science right now is in like a transition period. So I have standards from the old intermediate science, New York State standards, and that would be 3.1A, which is substances have characteristic properties. Some of these substance properties include, and then it goes on color, form, etc. So volume would be the property we're looking at today. And then the new next gen New York State science standards, it's more of a standard we are working towards because the standards are a little bit different now for the science standards. They're not so specific, they're more general. So this standard is MSPS 17, which is use evidence to illustrate that density is a property that can be used to identify samples of matter. So in order to be able to understand density, they have to know mass, which we're doing right now, and volume, which is what we're going to be doing in the lesson.
Okay, great. And where currently in the unit of study is this lesson located?
We're like right in the middle of the unit.
So the kids are familiar with what is going to be taught to them on Wednesday. Great. And how do you want the students to engage emotionally in this lesson? What is it that you want them to feel during the lesson?
So volume is probably new for them. They do learn it in math. They don't actually have to measure objects in math like they do in science. So I want them to be comfortable with it by the end of the lesson so that when we get to the next part of the unit, where they're actually measuring volume of objects, they won't be as nervous. Because that can kind of be intimidating. They're used to using rulers, but then when it counts towards a grade, they kind of get more nervous.
Okay. You said in math they're familiar with.
So if they haven't done volume yet, I know they're going to do it soon. We try to correlate, but it's sometimes difficult.
Sure. Okay, and what kind of instructional strategies am I going to see you using?
So you're going to see some guided notes. We're going to go over volume notes together as a class, and I'm going to show them some practice, and they'll do practice together. Then they're going to actually have actual worksheets which they'll work on themselves. And then there'll be a song that helps go over some volume stuff. They like the songs. And then there'll also be, if we have time, a review game.
Awesome. So you kind of answered some of this, but what am I going to see the students be doing?
So during the guided notes, they'll have it on their Chromebooks. They'll be following along, and there are some parts where they'll be kind of pausing and they'll be doing some actual practice, calculating the volume of the examples. I'll call for volunteers to come up front to go over those examples so they can see how well they did. Then once the notes are done, they'll have actual worksheets they'll be working on, which I gave you. So that's more of letting me know how they each individually are doing. So they'll work on the 2 worksheets. And then if we have time, we'll do a review game at the end that I always have on hand just in case.
Awesome. And what are some of the indicators for you to see student engagement in this lesson?
If they're paying attention as I walk around the room when I do notes because I have a remote, so I make sure they're on the current slide. If I see it or not, I might give them a nudge to get them caught up. If they're following along, so they're doing the actual practice slide as we go over it. If they're raising their hands to volunteer, if they're not raising their hands, they're at least listening, looking like they're focused, things like that.
And how are you differentiating to meet the needs of the students in the class?
So for this particular lesson, since it's the first day with volume, the differentiation is more about the different type of techniques I use. So they have guided notes, so they got the visual. There's a song, which is more audio. The song does have closed captions if they prefer to see the words. They're actually doing actual practice. After this lesson, if I see them struggling with the volume worksheet, I might actually change, maybe make the directions more simplified after this. But I would like to start off with, they can at least do the basic stuff and then differentiate more after that if needed. So they can do the basic stuff. There's no really reason to change things if they don't have to.
Okay. So you're going to see how this goes and then if need be to modify. Alright, great. And how will you know the students are getting the learning for checking for understanding?
So this would be looking at the worksheets. Are they doing all the steps? Are they using the right formulas? Because there'll be 2 different formulas they have to use. Units is a big thing. Are they using the right units? So that once they hand in the worksheet, either myself or Mr. C, because he's with me, will be going through the worksheets to see how they did.
Okay. And what are you going to do if they are not getting the learning?
So the next day would be go back through, maybe do more worksheets if needed, more examples together as a class, and then go back to see doing it on their own.
And what is the summative assessment this lesson is aligned to?
So the big one would be the state one that we're going to take next year as an 8th grader. During the performance exam, they do have to calculate the volume. It's currently wood blocks, so they need to be familiar with that. There will be an actual unit exam that I give as well, but the big summative assessment I'd say would be the state test next year.
And how will I see your culturally responsive instructional and behavioral support practices within this lesson?
For this class, respect is like they're great with respect. I usually don't have any issues with kids saying certain things they shouldn't be saying. But if I hear kids saying things they shouldn't be saying, like I usually, pull them aside and say you shouldn't be saying that. Tell them why, because some people might find it offensive, and why they find it offensive. You probably won't be seeing that because it's a pretty decent class for this class.
Okay. How many kids are in this class?
So there's 17 kids in the class. You'll probably only see 12 because of quarantine.
Okay.
9 of them have IEPs.
So that kind of leads into my next question. So 9 IEPs,
Yeah.
17 total kids. Anything else I should know about the kids in this class?
It's a great group. We got a decent mix of boys and girls at all levels. They support each other. I've had no kids absent. I can always ask, can you help so-and-so get caught up? And there's always a kid who's willing to do that.
Nice.
Mr. C is also there as well. So he's good at, we co-teach, we work off each other.
Yeah.
He'll probably give me the lead more on Wednesdays since it's the activation, but we usually work off each other.
Okay, great. I think I've gotten quite a few positive referrals from maybe that class, from you and Mr. C. I
Yeah.
feel like, we're helping each other get caught up. Then you said Mr. C is in there. He's the only other adult in there?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you kind of usually share off each other.
Yeah, so we'll both be walking around the room during the notes, making sure they're both on task. If I forget to say something, he'll jump in sometimes, or
Okay.
vice versa. We just really just work off each other.
Sounds like you guys have a good working relationship. Nice. Okay, and are there any district initiatives embedded into this lesson?
So the big thing would probably be question strategies and differentiation. Trying to use questions that make them really think more and think deeper than the more basic questions.
Some higher level thinking. Is there any data that you want me to collect while I'm in your classroom?
Maybe seeing how well they're being focused. And if you noticed any, usually either Mr. C or I can catch it, but if you see anyone who's struggling that we don't get to right away.
Okay.
Which can happen.
Anything else that you would like me to kind of observe that would be helpful?
So, because I'm a science person, the great thing about being in this class with Vince is that he knows how to help like the non-science people a lot, but if you think that maybe there's something a little too over their heads,
Okay.
point that out.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about during this pre-conference? No? Okay. All right, well, I'm looking forward to Wednesday.
I do.
Thanks, Jess.